Welcome to QInsight from QGate, where we explore where CRM, AI, emerging technology, and the real world meet. I'm Steve Clarke.
And I'm Alastair Jupp. Today's episode, we're joined by Sandra Koutzenko. Sandra is Director of Transformation at 365 Talent Portal, where she supports organisations through AI adoption, training, and operational transformation. Her work spans internal AI transformation strategy, user enablement, Copilot, and co-work implementation, and helping businesses understand how to adopt AI sustainably in a landscape that changes almost weekly, if not daily. With hands-on experience across training, automation, strategic AI development, Sandra works directly with organizations trying to balance experimentation, productivity, governance, and long-term value.
Sandra, welcome to the show. It's excellent to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's our pleasure. Sandra, to start, I'm going to ask you a question. Despite all of the progress in AI, a lot of businesses that we talk to and come across still seem stuck at the starting line. Why do you think AI continues to feel so overwhelming for so many organizations?
Well, there's a few challenges. And, the more I work in this space, the more I discover new things that are making it challenging for companies to adopt AI. One thing that's very obvious is that it's huge to start the process and then to keep it going. But I'd like to talk about the things that we don't talk about a lot when it comes to AI transformation. For example, one challenge that I don't see anybody talking about is the fact that AI is a super polarizing technology. You never see anybody hating a CRM system with the same amount of passion that people put into hating AI. And the next step up is that actually for many of those people who hate AI, the reasons are actually almost ideological. They touch upon, values and beliefs. And it's not just that, I don't like the way this technology works. It's, I don't like what it's doing to the world, and I'm afraid of where it's going to lead us. And that's super hard as a business leader to address something like this. So and most businesses that have a significant enough workforce are going to have at least one or two people who have these sorts of super anti-AI beliefs. I don't know if you've seen that in your work, but when training people, very often in a group, I'm going to have one person who says, no, I'm here because I have to, but I hate AI and I don't ever want to use it, and you're not going to convince me otherwise.
Yeah, it's usually people that are, and you'll probably touch on this, but it's usually the people that think AI is coming for their jobs. And from what I've seen, it tends to be in the creative space at the moment, or something that's very kind of transactional or repetitive. They're the ones. And I think it might be from what I've seen, it might be a morality perspective, but also I think it's cover your own backside time for a lot of people as well.
Absolutely. But I also see, on top of that, because that is very true, a number of people who just don't like the idea of computers doing so much, just, out of principle, and of the way that it's making everything so samey, and all of the things that we see people kind of disliking about AI have a real impact in business. So that's one area that can make things difficult. But I think another that businesses probably do see, and that is getting in the way, is the fact that AI keeps on changing. And actually, the tools we're working with today, especially Copilot, you're paying for a full-on license, but you're actually kind of working with a product that's more at the state that you would expect from a beta test, where you still have a number of bugs and you still have a number of things that are very much in development and they're changing, and you log in one day and there's a feature that's gone and there's 2 or 3 new ones, and the things that you used to find in one place are now in another. So I think for businesses, it's also a little bit scary to invest in a product that feels currently so unstable, because you're going to start working with it, and then actually in a week's time, you're going to have to change the way you're working. And then in 2 weeks' time, you're going to have to change it again. And so in addition to the work that comes with adoption, you have to think about the work that comes with keeping up with AI. And that's a real challenge. And I understand why companies are actually taking a step back and wondering whether they should really get started with this huge, huge thing.
I think that change is also driving the overwhelm, right? For me, the conversations are just, they're huge, right? It's so big and so broad and covering and so much of it. You know, the volume and the pace in which it's coming. And most businesses are not just being asked to adopt a new tool. You know, they're being asked to think about productivity, automation, risk, governance, data, jobs, customers. You know, it's fundamentally changing everything, right? You know, across businesses, and I think it causes a lot of problems. That's a lot for leadership to absorb, for starters. Well, where do we start with this? You know, as you said, the sheer pace and the volume. It's hugely interesting times to see how this is going to pan out, and I think there's also the FOMO, right? That also hits your anxiety levels where, oh, everyone's talking about it, everyone's doing this, all this marketing, it's very easy to do, and you're like, we need to be doing this, and you know, anxiety levels must be going through the roof in, you know, some of the boardrooms and management levels within the organizations around the UK for sure.
And actually, to build on that, the volume of people talking about AI is actually also creating a problem because you have so much noise around what you should be doing, and everybody's saying something different. You know, you should start with this. Oh no, actually now you should start with that. And you know, here are 10 prompts for you to try it. Here are 10 little agents to try to build. And you just keep seeing all of those guides of, hey, these are all the things that you should be doing right now. And I think that if you're new to this, it has to drive you mad to hear all those experts telling you where you should start. And it's never the same place and it's never the same thing.
But the AI itself is actually driving the content explosion, right? Because the AI so it's kind of self-fulfilling, isn't it?
Yeah, self-perpetuate, and it's an interesting concept actually, because we've been working with Sandra for quite a while now. So when we embarked on this AI journey, as most organisations did, that were you'd say at the forefront of this emerging technology for a few years. When we've been talking to organizations, we've been experiencing anxiety. So, Ali, you hit the nail on the head. But when you are surrounded by it, as we all are now, work or personal lives, do we now experience that not so much in the stage of anxiety, but almost fatigue? Are we, and is that something that you find, Sandra, with the you know, the organizations and the partners that you help? Are you finding that people are just maybe at this point, even at this point, oh, not more AI?
Absolutely. And, you know, I ran a webinar with, I think it was a couple months ago, about becoming a frontier partner. How do you become a frontier partner? The first question that was asked at the end was, hey, would you run a webinar about how to deal with AI fatigue? Because so this is a topic for people. And I said, actually, you know what, that's a great idea. And I still need to do that. But, you know, even me, and I really love AI, I think it's amazing. But I do find myself sometimes fatigued about seeing so much content about it. My entire LinkedIn feed is all about AI tips, AI stuff, but also AI created content. And for me, I actually have really good pattern recognition and AI writing patterns. And it's become now a case of when I just read the first sentence of a post, I can tell it's been written by, because there's a certain way that AI creates their hooks. And even when people rewrite them a little bit, I can still see the patterns.
You like the matrix, the code in the matrix you can see.
And it for me, it is really exhausting because my brain's not just focused on the patterns rather than the content. And so sometimes even when the post is interesting, I just cannot keep reading it the moment I see it's been written by AI. And I get that probably a number of people have the same problem, fatigue with every conversation being about AI and every conversation now being actually driven by AI and written by AI. And so I think we need also to find a way to keep the human into our work and into the way we interact with the world. And this is also a challenge that we're all facing right now.
It's very easy just to go to AI, right? You know, something comes across your desk, I just stick it. And actually, I've actually found myself stepping back from doing that now, that actually I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this properly now. I'm going to do it properly.
We've gone full circle. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. You know?
And I want to go back to something, Sandra, that you touched upon, and that actually, Alastair, you did as well, in that there's so much exposure to AI and there's so many different tools. and quite rightly, and it's a really exciting thing to place to be at the moment. And one thing that I'm always very careful of is that when we do these podcasts, we can often focus on the negative around AI, things like, the term AI slop for the images that are quite clearly, the six fingers or the misspelt words. But conversely, and certainly everything that you do with AI, Sandra, and that what we do here at QGate, it's so powerful. We've just got to make the right decisions. And actually, you can make a few wrong decisions. You've got to fail. As long as you fail quickly, that's fine. That it leads me on to the question: what horse do you back? What's the AI horse? Because we've got Claude, we've got Copilot, we've got ChatGPT, Anthropic. We've now got Cowork, which I know you're very excited about, and we are here at QGate as well. How, as an organization, do you look at everything that's available to you and make that sometimes quite significant investment and that decision to go with a particular platform?
That's an excellent question. And we are getting a number of companies who come to us with that very same challenge, getting started and saying, okay, I've been using this model and playing around a bit. And how do I, set this up properly? What do I choose? And the truth is, there's actually no right answer. You have to think strategically. And the way that I look at this and the way that I advise companies is, first, you don't actually have to have only one AI subscription. And it's very likely that you will need more than one in the future if you truly want your business to move to AI. However, there's a structure that is very important to follow. The first one is, if you want to use AI for productivity, you absolutely must have a model that is integrated with your productivity tool. For example, if you are using Microsoft 365, I would say it's a no-brainer for any company to also invest in Copilot, especially now because Microsoft are making so much effort, putting so much effort into developing it and making it better, that it has become a very strong AI model. But for example, if you're in the Google ecosystem, you might actually want to invest in Gemini because this is where all of your data sits. And you really don't want to have to go and start playing around with APIs and stuff because that's much more complex. So you need to kind of make a decision about this. Your ecosystem, if you're in Google Docs right now and you already have everything and you don't want to migrate, just learn how to use Gemini and how to maximize it. If you're in Microsoft, learn how to use Copilot. I know that there's companies that keep switching back and forth between different systems, and I can't even imagine the nightmare it's going to be for them to manage that with AI. But my advice would be really just to do this as a first step. And then look at the limitations of the tool that you have, because depending on where you are, you might get an AI tool that's better or worse. And then you can find another one that would complement the skills of the AI that you've got to work with. So that's kind of what I advise. And also the other thing to keep in mind is it's important to be prepared to change, especially your secondary model. Like for example, ChatGPT used to be quite good, but lately I found it to be getting worse and worse and worse and worse. So I've stopped using it entirely as a secondary model. I've switched to Anthropic because of this. And maybe one day Anthropic's going to get bad and ChatGPT is going to get better and I'll have to switch back. And that's okay so long as the core of what I do sits in Copilot, where all my work processes are, where, I'm going to build my long-term systems, my long-term automations, etc. That's kind of the strategy that companies can follow to have a mix of stability, because you need one stable AI model that has access to the majority of your work, and then also benefiting from whatever is the best model right now. It is also good to know that with Copilot, Microsoft has made efforts to integrate other models. Like right now, you can choose between OpenAI and Anthropic for a number of tasks. And then when you learn how to use Copilot Studio, you can actually bring in pretty much any model you want into the agents that you build. So for me, that's an extra reason to invest in Copilot for any company that either uses Microsoft 365 or is prepared to migrate to Microsoft 365.
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. But Microsoft's strategy clearly understand that actually the model itself is whichever one of these things you're using is not the restricting factor. And people have choice. They want the choice. I think the bit where the flexibility is more challenging is the platforms. It's the same old story. It's the platforms that sit behind that technology. So whatever CRM you're using, what ERP you're using, what finance system you're using, what your marketing automation tool is, they're the things that are more difficult to move. Data migrations are painful and hard and expensive, right? So the market is moving far too quickly to pick a horse and go, oh, we made the wrong one. It's those foundations that sit behind it. Those are the things that are your restrictive factor. And that those decisions are typically already been made in business, right? You're probably on a platform already. What I would say is, depending on which of those platforms in the back you do use, it might be easier, particularly governance wise, if you go with kind of the same technology stack. That's the long and short of it. But that doesn't mean it has to be that way, right? It doesn't. It would just make life easier. Controlling your data, who has access to the data, what permissions, all your AI, your governance that sits behind it.
Absolutely.
I just want to focus on something you said a moment ago, Sandra. ChatGPT's been getting worse and worse and worse. Now,
yes.
I'm going to ask, and I'll come back, because my question is, what have you experienced? Why is it getting bad? And that's a loaded question, because we've now gone from a place where organizations have to choose, or thought they had to choose, just Copilot or just ChatGPT or just Gemini. Now, let's say, for the sake of argument, that actually ChatGPT, a department within an organization, marketing, just for the sake of argument, has found ChatGPT does something wonderful for them.
Mm-hmm.
Do now, as a business, we have to think, or as advisors to businesses that want to adopt AI, actually, let's start putting two in. Why there's case in points for going for Copilot alongside Gemini if they have or have outputs that are going to suit particular functions with an organization? Is there a case for that?
Absolutely. And this is kind of what I tell companies to do, especially companies that don't have access to Copilot, because like we said, Copilot actually allows you access now to a number of modules. And so you can do a lot more natively within the Microsoft ecosystem than you used to. But if that's not the case, and for example, on the Google side, I know Gemini does have interesting functionalities, but it's not to the level of what you can do with something like Copilot, for example. And so you might find that for certain tasks, you'd actually prefer to use something like Perplexity or even ChatGPT if you like the way that it works right now. And I think that it's also important to be prepared to sometimes try again the models as they evolve, the others that you're not using right now, and see if something can do better for you than the models you're using at the moment. So and to go back to your question about ChatGPT, the evolution of the models really changes behaviors heavily. And for example, I really liked ChatGPT 4.1 when it existed because it was amazing at following instructions. It was so good at that. The latest models, the 5.x, they have become terrible at it, to the point that all the custom GPTs that I built are almost unusable because I keep having to remind them that they have custom instructions. They just, when you ask them something, they just start doing it in whatever way they want to instead of following their instructions. All models I've noticed have this tendency. Even Claude now follows instructions a little less well, but ChatGPT is particularly worse. And I've noticed a number of cases in which the things you don't like about AI are a bit more exaggerated in the OpenAI models than they would be in the others. Like the writing tics that AI has are a little worse in ChatGPT than in Claude. And it's kind of been getting worse over time in my observations, and at least for my use cases. And so that's why I've completely stopped using it right now. But maybe in 6 months' time, it's going to be good again, and I'm going to get a new subscription. And that's why you need to stay a little bit open-minded and keep experimenting.
Or in 2 weeks' time when they release it.
In 2 weeks' time. Brilliant. Oh, it's almost like you knew what I was going to ask next, Ali, because that's ideal. Sandra, in the when you work with organisations in trying to impart a bit of knowledge and wisdom, in terms of AI and which route they go, we're now not at a point necessarily where you need to, as we were just talking about, need to back one particular horse. We can back a few and we can chop and change, but there really is the opportunity here to spend a lot of money on a particular platform. If I don't know, the Coca-Colas of the world, whoever it might be, the Walmarts, you're going to have significant resource available to you to get the best out of AI and whatever factor that might be. How can you reliably sit there when 2 weeks, every 2 weeks we got a chop and a change, and this comes out, a connector with Claude or co-work, Microsoft Copilot co-work, that comes out, and then all of a sudden you're sat there and you're thinking, well, we've just dumped £500,000 into this platform, and we've got Sandra saying that ChatGPT at the moment's no good. Look, there must be a real risk of just standing still, of not doing anything at all. So how do you make that decision? How do you sit there and go, let's put £500,000 in X?
Honestly, I don't think there's a real answer to this question.
Good. Okay, I'm glad.
Because you're right, and it's a real challenge. It's impossible right now for anybody to tell what's going to be the best model next year. My observation, and I'm going to sound super pro Microsoft, there are things that they also could do better if we want to talk about this. But the trend that I've noticed in working with different AI models is Copilot has tended to get better over time in a way that's a little steadier than the other models. And at the same time, the upside of Copilot and why it would be the model I would advise companies to invest in, especially if you have a lot of budget, then you could potentially migrate from another ecosystem, is because of the amount of possibilities that you have to create systems and to make things worse. That's the one AI tool that has the most options for automating your tasks, between co-work, the quick, simple agents, Copilot Studio, and then you can connect it with Power Automate and with all sorts of things that can actually allow you to create full-scale AI apps. And you can do that with other tools, but if you're outside of the Microsoft ecosystem, you're going to have to use several tools, most of which are less secure than what's in the Microsoft ecosystem. Like there's a lot of AI app builders right now that are actually easier to use than Power Platform, but they're also a lot less secure for things like the IP that you would put into it as the knowledge source for your agents, for example. So I think that right now, I would say Microsoft is a really great bet for anyone who's ready to invest in AI. The others are a little riskier simply because they are reliant on only one AI model. And right now, Microsoft is the best way to get access to several models at the same time. And that really dilutes the risk that you would take if you're about to invest in a specific platform.
I think organizations need to plan differently, right? Traditionally, and this is what we do, technology strategy is often a fairly stable landscape, right? You choose a platform, you build a roadmap, you implement it, you optimize it over time, but that's still required for the foundations as we talked about. But actually AI does not behave in the same way, I don't think. A feature that needs custom work today, and we quite frequently have this conversation with clients, that be careful what you invest your money in here, because tomorrow they could be doing it out of the box, and so there's almost like a bit of a risk reward that you have to consider is, well, do we invest our time and our money and our budget in just building this custom thing to do it, and accept the risk that tomorrow you might be throwing all that away because the model's changed, or some other model is now better, or it's out of the box now. So maybe the strategy is less about committing to one kind of fixed tool and more about building flexibility, building capability. And the one thing that is flexible within businesses is people. And so you invest your effort in your people and less worry about agent and AI platform you're going to use. I think that's a reasonable way to look at this.
That is a really good point.
That's the way to go. Okay. So, in our podcast, Sandra, we like to try and offer up some practical advice to SMBs, mid markets, enterprise alike. And we've spoken a couple of times so far in this episode around co-work. So
Yes.
Copilot co-work. I would like to use this as an opportunity for our listeners to get ahead of the game, because right now, as of recording, I believe co-work is still in. It might not even be a public preview yet, so it's certainly not generally available. So, could you tell us a bit about co-work? Because when we spoke not too long ago, you were super excited about it.
Yes.
What is it?
So co-work is the first. I'm going to sound again like I work in marketing or sales for Microsoft. It's it's not the case. I actually really like what they're doing with Copilot right now. But anyway, so co-work is the first opportunity that you have in the Microsoft ecosystem to meaningfully delegate tasks to AI. Because before that, with Copilot, you could interact with AI and get it to generate things for you. But co-work can actually execute multi-step tasks for you. For example, do research about something, then create a Word document, and then save it for you in a specific SharePoint space so that you can, and then send an email to your team so that they can go and have a look at your document. So working with co-work is a lot more like working with an actual assistant than working with Copilot was, because you can literally just teach it how to do certain things and it's going to generate information for you. It can populate your spreadsheets. It can update documents for you. So things that I would have formally delegated to someone else, I'm now delegating to co-work and freeing up some of that person's time, for example. So things I would have done myself, I'm now getting co-work to have a first run at it. One scenario in which it saved me a huge amount of time is preparing proposals. Because for me, proposals are quite complex. Very often we have companies coming to us for complex training programs with several different courses. You've actually done that once. So you've seen, they can be quite heavy. And then before co-work, I actually had to go and copy and paste all the agendas, the pricing, and it takes a long time to put it all together. With co-work, I just paste the transcript of my conversation with the company. And usually in the conversation, we've talked about their requirements, their objectives. I talk about the training plan. So there's actually a lot of what is necessary to build the proposal. And then co-work actually knows where to go and look for the agendas, the pricing, and it just creates a pre-populated proposal with the full training plan, the target objectives. And I just have to go and edit it, which, I mean, it's never fully perfect. You always have to go in and edit, but it saves me hours. And it's actually really good, and it designs it better than I would as well. It creates really cool designs for the proposals. So, and that's an example, and it just goes ahead and does the whole process and saves the proposal into the right client folder on SharePoint, and I just have to go in and edit it. So that's a really and completely different way of working than it used to be before. Like I come in the morning and I go, okay, what am I doing? How can co-work get me started? And I just launch 2 or 3 tasks, and then I do something else, and then I come back and I review the output, and then I edit, etc. So it is more like you're a dispatcher of tasks, and you come in and you go, okay, let's delegate these things, and then okay, I'm coming back, I'm reviewing, I'm editing, and I have space to focus on the things that I really want to do myself that are not, there's a lot of things I do that are things like, getting data from one place and putting it into a spreadsheet, reviewing what's in Microsoft Dynamics, and, priority. All of that can be quite reliably done by AI and without losing any quality, because it's not where the quality comes in and where the human needs to intervene. So that's kind of what it is. And this is the real step forward for companies to really become frontier businesses, because before co-work, if you wanted systems that would do things like this, you'd have to do it in Copilot Studio. And that required advanced knowledge and also significantly more time than it does with co-work. I mean, even the simple things as getting an agent to save a file in SharePoint. it's not a simple setup at all. And you probably know this better than I do, but it actually takes quite a bit of time to actually teach the agent how to save a file somewhere, right? So it is a huge game changer in
Mhm.
how much companies are going to be able to automate without having to have advanced Power Platform training.
I, my experience, one of the biggest things in co-work is it can it has create rights within Dynamics 365 sales.
Yes, that's
And
very awesome.
for the world we're in, we see where CRM is going, right? That actually I can go into co-work and say, create me an opportunity, copy an email into it and go and create me the opportunity, and it will create the opportunity for you, give you a little approval button, say, are you happy? Yes, create, and it does it. Um, we're doing a talk in front of clients later this month, and I wanted a dashboard. So I went into co-work and said, "Can you create me a dashboard of our opportunities in our platform?" And obviously, it had all our customer data on it. So I said, "Well, can you? I'm going to use this as a demo. Can you just blank out all the confidential information?" And it blanked out all the confirmation. So right there, I've just in about 2 seconds built a nice demo piece that I can show to my public audience that we'll be promoting to. It's just the traditional view of Dynamics where you've got forms, you've got views, all static and structured. It's going to be replaced by this automatic. Just tell me what you want generated, and I'll generate the views on the hand. I want these columns, and it will do it out of the box. That's where CRM, that's where ERP, all these other platforms are going to go.
Absolutely.
I'm going to take a soundbite because I can't quite believe you just used the term "my public," Ali. So my adoring public when we do our talk, which I'm very much looking forward to being a part of. But it's funny because you can think about AI in maybe two ends of quite a broad spectrum in being very complex, very expensive to implement or to upkeep or maintain or whatever that might look like. For me, it is it's what I would like to see, and I think we're seeing it with co-work is it getting better at some of the more simple things, the little things. And Sandra, I'm really pleased to hear that it's handling PowerPoint well, because or the ability to build kind of presentations. Nothing, and I'm not a designer. I'm a salesperson. So my our head of marketing, Phil, is often lambasting me about my efforts when it comes to creating anything of a graphical nature. So I've tried to use Copilot as much as possible, or ChatGPT in a slightly earlier iteration, to create these presentations for me, and it just could never get it right. So ultimately, I gave up, and I did see the output from one of our colleagues, Steve, not too long ago. He was like, look at this that it kicked out." I was like, "Thank you. At long last, I can get away from this, and I'm not going to get scolded by Phil every time I create something." So that does make me very happy.
Me too. Yeah, it is surprisingly good at design, and that has also saved me quite a lot of time and effort.
Excellent stuff. Excellent. So I want to just stay on the kind of practical tips
Mhm.
area, right, for a little while longer. We've got co-work, we've got agents, and again, I'm trying. It's hard not to focus on Microsoft when we see them being right at the
Yes.
forefront of everything that's going at the moment. We're a Microsoft partner, so it kind of goes hand in hand with what we're experiencing. But agents are where, and ChatGPT have got agents now, and they're all over
Mhm.
the place. Can you give maybe an example or two of something relatively easy a business could do with an agent? I mean, we've spoken just a moment ago about creation of proposals. What's something that can generate real quick win ROI? You're not spending a lot of money anyway, but what can an agent do for a business that's going to help, that's tangible? Do you think?
Well, there's a few scenarios. So, an agent, if we're talking about an agent and not co-work, you're going to want to focus on scenarios where you need things like knowledge retrieval or quick conversation. So, for example, if you're an HR rep, and that's actually a scenario that comes up in training, you often need to check things like laws and regulations around work and changes, etc. you can connect an agent to specific websites that you know are reliable with the government-backed sources, etc., that you can actually just go to and ask about latest developments about something related to HR, or to help you with, what's the rule and regulation about this specific scenario. And that can save you a lot of time in things like research whenever you need to update yourself. Another scenario could be an onboarding agent. When you get a new employee in, something that can actually guide that person through the steps of whatever it is they need to do when you're getting started into your company. And that agent would be connected to your onboarding process, relevant resources, maybe the contacts of the person needs to talk to, and she could take the person step by step through what they need to do to get fully onboarded. There's, so many different scenarios. Now I'm using co-work a lot more than agents, but and I've built a lot for my personal life as well that are quite fun. But yeah, you can get creative, and I think once you get started in creating a few agents, you kind of get into this mind habit when new ideas are started to come to you of, oh yeah, I could automate this task. I could get an agent connected to this knowledge to answer questions for me. You also have the customer-facing agents. Now you can see a lot of companies have started to do this and put little agents onto their web pages. And it's just agents connected to a database of knowledge related to what questions a customer might ask. And they're able to answer those questions because of access to that particular knowledge. So you can do that internally. What questions might an employee need to ask inside your company about their HR rights, about their training? There's actually a number of agents being built about personalized training, right? They can build you a training plan based on your role in the company, guide you to the resources you have access to, and help you learn a little bit every day. It's infinite, really, but I hope those few examples are a good start.
I think the most effective kind of use cases at the moment are almost the least dramatic ones. Transcribing of meetings, drafting responses, categorizing requests. They're the very pointed, focused tasks that they've been applied to, right? And I think they typically be the most effective. I think the other side of it is the co-pilots themselves, right? So your ChatGPT, your Claude, the generic one, the ones we all know and the ones we all use. Actually, they can be used to provide a business kind of safe access to helping your teams leapfrog forwards in terms of quality, in terms of capability and expertise. It opens the door to pharma, particularly for SMEs. I think we're going to get onto this, but there's kind of enterprise are very much looking at, I think, reducing people and replacing range because they've got all this expertise in their business already. They've got these digital content teams and sales excellence teams and development teams, and they can build internal tools. They have all that capability, whereas SMEs don't have that capability. And I think what AI is doing for them is less about who can I take out of my business, and actually look how much more I can do with what I've got. Actually, I think that is where AI can really help SMEs.
You've raised a really good question there, Ali. And you're right. Actually, I did want to kind of get on that AI replacing worker topic, because it's one that we've all been privy to. But here's a question then. As an employee of an organization, I have adopted AI and I use it for every single task I think it could be applied to. But do I now need to consider, if I were looking for another job, and hopefully I'm not anytime soon, Ali, cheers, do I now need to consider the size organization that I apply for a job at? Because by virtue of what you've just said, that actually, and I agree with it, SMEs, we're not looking at replacing staff, we're looking at making their roles easier. But if I go and work for a Coca-Cola, for example, do I need to be mindful that actually a role that I'm going into, because of the vast resources they've got, ostensibly they could replace me with AI 2-3 years down the line? But this SME, is that a safer bet? They're going to give me AI tools to make my job easier. Do I need to start thinking about that?
Well, this is dangerous.
It's a very real consideration then, by virtue of that.
It's an interesting way to look at it. That the simple fact in an SME, right? You typically only have one or two people doing particular jobs, and with AI at the moment, you have to maintain that human oversight. So in an SME, simply you can't replace the person with the AI, because then you replace the oversight, right? And the AI, and you open yourselves up to risk there. So yeah, maybe. But then SMEs have a lot of other problems they have to deal with, right? Other than so there are it swings and roundabouts, but it's an interesting view. Yeah.
Well, a key aspect is your role, because you're in sales, and sales is a human-led domain. So I don't think it's in the near future that salespeople are going to be replaced with AI, because humans want to buy from people. So I think you are safe. There are a number of roles that are much more at risk. And so even in large companies will still need humans to sell. That's for sure. But I know that the translator job is dying out. There's going to need to be fewer and fewer translators, and it's going to become very niche, that you would call upon a human translator rather than an AI one. Developers. So that's interesting. And I keep seeing things that I haven't actually checked if it's true or not. Stories about companies who've fired most of their developers and now they're rehiring them. But I would expect that to be the truth, because I think that as exciting as AI is, we do need to keep in mind it is still very much a work in progress. And so this means that even things that AI can do well occasionally, it's not going to do well reliably over time. And I was talking about co-work, which has amazing potential, but it also has a lot of bugs right now. For example, yesterday I logged into my account, and 3/4 of the custom skills I built were just gone. And I had only 3 left, which are the first 3 I created. So I don't know why. It's not something I did, but that's a lot of work that I put into this that I'm now going to have to repeat. Also, the file uploads keep failing because it doesn't yet know how to do everything every time the right way. So there's work to do before co-work can reliably replace a person. And I would say that right now, you still need somebody who can check the work's been done and who can actually jump in and do it if there's a failure, which is still, I think, going to happen for some time, because Copilot's been having failures for some time and it's getting better. Yeah. But it's still a work in progress. So I don't think it's the right time for any company to fire their developers, for sure. Yeah. And definitely there's a number of roles where we need people. Marketing, for example, even though a lot of people are writing their posts with AI, if you really want to win at marketing, you will be a lot better off if you still have human written, or at least human edited posts, because people want to see that. And it's going to be now a differentiator if you have your marketing actually written by humans. So I think, essentially what I'm trying to say is your career choices when it comes to AI very much depend on your role and how easily AI can replace you.
Yeah. It makes sense. And I'm glad you say that about sales. So yeah, I'll agree with that wholeheartedly, thankfully. So we're about out of time, Sandra, on this episode, and it's been fantastic to have you. And I know we've spoken about some practical tips and advice. Wrap it up for us. What and to primarily an SME listener base that we have, mid-market kind of listener base that we have, sometimes they do hesitate. They're still not quite sure. What's the advice?
Well, the advice is just get started, because in spite of everything that we said about how complex this is and, all the uncertainties, you will gain a lot by using AI. You will learn a lot as well, and you will have an opportunity to massively accelerate your growth, to increase the quality of your work. And it doesn't have to be a mountain. And this is the second part of that advice, is break down the mountain in small pieces. I think a really great first step is just start learning how to use the AI that's connected to whatever productivity tool you use. For example, Copilot in Microsoft 365 or Gemini if you're using Google Doc. Just actually activate licenses to a pilot group of champions, give them a little bit of basic training and get them just started using the tools, get them started on simple agents. And with just these two things, like basic productivity AI tools and simple agents, you can start automating a lot and you can start seeing the difference and you can start creating AI literacy within your company, which is key right now. Clients are going to be looking for that. There's starting to be laws and regulation around how companies are supposed to now offer AI literacy and train their employees in AI literacy. So it is important to just find your first small, simple step to start getting AI into your business. And again, it does not have to be the whole mountain just yet. Just tackle the first rock.
Excellent.
It's interesting you talked about it. I heard the other day that you can now get an AI license, like a certification. I don't think it's a formal regulation thing at the moment, but you go for a training program and then you kind of, okay, you're now licensed to be able to use AI correctly within your organization. And it wouldn't surprise me if in time that does become within regulation, where you're not allowed to use this until you've got one of these, like a driving license, right?
Isn't that part of the European Data Act?
It might possibly be, yes. I'm not 100%. I think it's either, I don't know whether it's yet or it's coming.
It's not going as far as a license, if I understood it properly, but you are supposed to be able to prove that you've trained your employees into specifically the tools that they need for their job. So it's not just one random blanket AI training. You need to be able to have evidence that your employees have had appropriate AI training to their role. So it's the start of something like this. Yeah.
Microsoft license is going to mean something else in 2 weeks' time. We're not talking about a subscription. We're talking about your photo ID to be able to get on Copilot. Excellent. Sandra, thank you. Ali, over to you.
So look, for me, I just wanted to say that rather than ask the question, how do we save time? Ask the question, what can we now do that we couldn't do before? I think for SMEs, that's a real critical pivot. But Sandra, look, thank you very much for joining us on the show, and thanks to everyone at home for listening. If you've enjoyed it, be sure to follow or subscribe. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, and YouTube.
Sandra, that was excellent. We really do appreciate your time. Thank you. But we will be back for another episode with special guest Ryan Pennett, who's the VP of Business Development at QWare, where we'll be looking at data quality and the foundations of good AI. QInsight is produced by QGate, and to learn more about how we're helping organizations navigate CRM, AI, and emerging technologies, visit qgate.co.uk. Thanks for listening. We will see you next time.